Hey, you guys, can everyone hear me? Hey, everybody. Hopefully you guys can hear me and see my face now. Let me know if the audio is off or if the music's too loud or something, because it's basically impossible for me to be able to tell how I sound to you guys over the music and whatnot. Not sure how many people are watching. Okay, looks like 5 people. Alrighty. Will I be able to do this correctly? Let's find out. Here's the second camera angle I've got set up, you guys. Hopefully that looks considerably nicer than my crappy webcam does. This is the same camera that I shoot all my videos on now. So yeah, what do you guys think? You're looking, it's pretty much ready to go back into the arena, right? No, don't have to do anything. Shouldn't have to do much to get that working again. It's probably fine. Wait a few minutes for more people to join in before I get started here. I realized that I tried to have like a preview thing going for the first like 10 minutes of this, but I forgot to hit the go live button, so I think I actually started a minute late. So sorry about that. I'm not going to be putting the power distribution boards in Division, only because Division was designed quite a long time ago, and the way that it's set up, it's kind of too small for them to fit. But I will definitely be using one in Shrapnel Mine so that I can tidy up the wiring for that, because Shrapnel Mine is going to have quite a lot going on in it. Alright, got 11 people, that's not too bad. If you guys have any questions for me, feel free to ask now, and I'll take questions, how about until maybe 1:10, and then I'll get started on the repairs. Yep, I have the boards in front of me here. These are the newer version 1.0, newer-ish version 1.0 boards. That's all set up. This is just a standard jumper cable you can buy, which I might stock and sell alongside these. And this is what the board would look like if you buy it when it ships out to you. So it has the screw and switch and everything, and this pin header and 5-volt regulator and all the required other components on there, as well as the LED, but it just doesn't have the connectors pre-soldered to it or anything. And I have on my store also a separate link now where you can buy the connectors separately, because the stock management on my site doesn't like doing variants of products with different stock numbers the way that I'd like. I still have the basic boards here. I have 7 of these left for sale if you're interested in this version. Those are the ones that still need to be drilled out. So if people really like those basic boards, the simpler one, I might end up doing another order of those as well to stock more. I have my laptop out in front of me, it's like super far away. Let's see if I can somehow make the chat like actually readable real quick. I think I can actually see that. Yeah, I have. When I pop it out, it doesn't let me actually zoom in. So I did the control mouse wheel thing on the regular window, and that seems to be working now. Okay. Where are we at? 109. Got 12 viewers, so I think probably now is as good a time as any to get started. Just making sure I have my everything set up. Do I consider that Division tends to throw stuff around the box a feature? Yes and no. I mean, it's annoying if I get hit and it flies away. It's also annoying if I'm delivering a hit and it flies away when it could otherwise stay planted, which is one of the things I tried to address with these forks. So the idea here was basically to make it so that the angle of attack on my weapon is more upwards, because the lower down it is when it hits, the more just kind of forwards it's hitting. Whereas if I have the other robot up here instead of down here, I can kind of hit them upwards and stay planted on the ground. Which worked well in that first exchange against Blackbird, but then the forks getting stuck upwards, that didn't really help anymore after that, so that kind of sucked. But it is helpful to be able to throw itself around if I were to get stuck into a position where I need to self-right from. I just realized I forgot my adjustable wrench here. I kind of need to take off everything. Which came first, this or Drizzle? Technically, Drizzle was like released on Battlebots before I had Division fighting, but I did not design Division like only after I had seen Drizzle. I designed it based on Deep Six, not based on Drizzle at all. So I started designing it well before I had even heard of Drizzle's existence, really. Alright. Why don't we just get started here? And see everything going on, hopefully. If my voice is too quiet, because I have to... My microphone has a pretty short cable, I can't do anything about that, really. I'll turn up the gain a little bit, and if it's like peaking or something, just let me know. Alright, so basically the first thing that I always need to do is take the top armor off to be able to get at the insides. Right now, there are not very many screws holding it on still, so that's not too difficult to do. Oh, I can also hopefully zoom a bit here. I'm not sure if my camera's battery is going to last this whole time. I have it plugged in via USB to try and charge it at the same time, but it may or may not, like, just decide to die anyway. So I'm pretty sure it should be able to last for 2 hours, though. Yeah, I can show inside. I can show inside the bot once I have it open from the top, but right now my camera's on a tripod that is behind this table that I set up basically on my bed. So I can't position the camera directly above it because the tripod would be like in the way. I'll like so. How's that looking? Is that better for you guys? One of the things that I really need to change with this design at some point is the way that the top armor is held on. So the base plate is literally just a plate, and then I have screws going into some metal standoffs, like you can see here, from both the bottom and the top. And the problem with that is the screws on the bottom need to be tighter than the ones on the top. There's literally no way that I'll be able to remove the ones on top because the ones on the bottom will just turn. And I Loctited the bottom. The impacts that these bots see in fights, it's like almost a moot point that the ones on the bottom will break loose at some point. I don't... Yeah, the base plate's not perfect right now, for sure. I don't know if it's like entirely bent. It might be time for me to upgrade to like a carbon fiber base plate and just get brand new ones made that won't be able to bend, because I made the mistake of doing this whole aluminum thing from the start. Like the very first version of Division, version 1.0, had aluminum base plate, front armor, aluminum side armor, aluminum rear armor, and aluminum uprights, and then a metal weapon or a steel weapon. But now in this version I have titanium sides, titanium front armor on the horizontal config, AR500 forks with PPU front armor on this config, and then just aluminum with the rear armor and the base plate. But yeah, I think you can kind of tell that this part is like bent a little bit. Like in between here, it's perfectly straight, and then it kind of goes down a little on the side. Pretty standoffs coming with the whole top. That's fine. This is what I was talking about with the standoffs. Like they just kind of suck. So, yeah, this, I guess, got hit at some point. Hey there. Alright, now you can see exactly what happened here. That's as much as I can. So yeah, this is carbon fiber nylon 3D printed gearbox housing, custom designed. You can find the design for free on my web store, which is linked in the description and first comment in the chat as well. Basically, I have an off-the-shelf gear set, but I'm using a custom housing, and it is, you know, the housing can survive most things that aren't direct hits, but when the shaft gets hit directly, it's really not really meant to support that kind of a load. I lost one of the gears I saw on the floor of the arena after that fight too, and fortunately I grabbed it, but I'm not sure if any of the other gears from this gear set are missing though. This one seems surprisingly undamaged, considering I would be a little bit surprised if they're all undamaged though. So that's one thing I'll have to investigate. But I do have a spare assembled gearbox I could just swap in. Issues with focus? Yeah, once I zoom in a lot, the depth of field is like pretty narrow. So it should be hopefully better. It might be just focusing on this. Maybe that'll help a little bit. Okay, I can see on my monitor actually what you're seeing now. That looks much better, I think. If I get rid of that, was it out of focus? Maybe a little bit. I'll just keep it wrapped onto this. Is Division being wider than his long help? Does that help with self-writing? Sort of. It's sort of a requirement with the way that everything is packaged, that it's very short, because the weapon sticks out on the front and on the back since it's kind of centered. So the shorter the robot is, the more reach I get with the weapon at a height that other robots actually exist at. Having such a large diameter weapon kind of has the problem of needing to have the other bot be really close to me, be able to hit them low down, because the weapon's diameter, I mean, it curves up like a ton. So if they're, you know, here, I can only get so close before my weapon will just miss them entirely. Driver. It's not the right driver. Hello there. So you can see Blackbird sheared 2 of the screws in half, holding on these not hinged forks. This one we bent up pretty good. Hold on. Still tracking. And this screw is intact. The one on this side, you can see right there, that just sheared right in half. I had to switch from 2 short number 6 screws to 2 long number 4 screws, and number 4 is just obviously way too weak. But yeah, gives me a good chance to try out these screw extraction pliers that I've never used before. Oh yeah, that works great. Would moving the weapon shaft forward be an option? I mean, it's an option, but it would suck, because the problem that you deal with when you move the weapon forward of the center of mass a lot is that the whole robot wants to go crazy directions whenever it's turning. Like, it's already kind of drifts backwards a little bit while it's turning as is, but like if you see any of the fights that Crossbow had, for instance, at Norwalk, which was basically pretty inspired by Division for obvious reasons, he has this huge weapon, but his design is kind of more like Monsoon, where the weapon is like out in front and the wheels are like here, so it just is either in this position or that position. And every time he tries to turn, the robot goes in like a huge arc backwards, so he basically can't move forward while turning at all, which is not great. I can at least move forward while turning in a wide enough circle if my weapon's not at full speed, and also if I don't try and turn too fast. But with this, the size of his weapon being similar to mine, and also having more weight in it, on top of having the wheels so far from where that axle is, and having the weapon so far from the center of mass, it was just gyrating all over the place, even at pretty slow turning speeds. So he couldn't point at the direction he needed to face to actually attack anyone. So this corner piece got destroyed. That's a nylon alloy 910 3D print. So I might swap those for new nylon ones, or I could potentially try. I just got some new material in. That's a glass cavity nylon, which might be a good place to test that out. Because it has better tensile strength, but it should have pretty similar impact strength. I don't print any polycarbonate parts. I only print nylon and carbon fiber nylon and all the other materials that are easier to print. I tried polycarbonate, but it kind of destroyed the hot end. But I use a Prusa Mark III's, which I got as a kit. Assembled. It took like 4 to 6 hours to assemble, but it saves like $200 to get it that way, and it's a phenomenal printer. I currently modified it with an upgraded titanium heat break and a hardened steel nozzle, so that it can print carbon fiber and glass, just because those are a brazen brass nozzle that comes stock on it. But I mean, it pretty much works great otherwise. But yeah, polycarbonate, because it prints so hot. Like even carbon fiber nylon, you can print at like 250 Celsius, maybe. It's ideally better at like 265 or so. I usually print 265, 270 Celsius, but like, there's basically no way that you're going to print polycarbonate on most printers stock. You really need like all-metal hot end, and then it also was like melting the plastic parts around it even with an all-metal hot end on the Prusa, because there's like 3D printed parts holding that in. And the parts were, I think, the printed parts on the Prusa, or at least one of them is like ABS, which isn't like the highest temperature resistance filament, so it was not heavy. So I'm probably just going to take this motor off of this little thing, but it's not like super important to keep this. Yeah, this is pretty much done though. I obviously printed this with not enough walls and too much infill. I don't know if you can see the infill in there. But yeah, too much infill, not enough walls. Walls add way more to the strength of the part. I have another one of those plastic bits. I'm gonna have to grab my iFixit toolkit to get a driver small enough for these M2 screws though, so I'll be back in a second there. If you do any kind of PC repair or laptop repair, highly recommend getting one of these. It's pretty much everything you'll ever need to take anything apart. I'm kind of a cheapskate sometimes, so like I had a laptop that I dropped and the screen popped out, bezel, but it was still intact. But it was a touchscreen and the touch part stopped working. I managed to use this. I just basically pulled the whole thing apart, reseated a ribbon cable inside of the screen assembly, put it back together, and then it worked fine. Still using it today. What bearings? I used the cheapest bearings off of Amazon. They're just standard 3/8 inch ID ball bearings. Really nothing fancy, but I have 3 of them in here so that they can take the impact loads pretty well. So basically it deals with out-of-plane forces because the bearings are as far apart laterally as they can be, but there's a 3rd one in the middle. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. So it's basically just bearings. Like, there's nothing in here other than just ball bearings inside of this whole width, which means there's nothing with any real compliance to it other than the pulley. So when the weapon is jammed one way or another, at least the 2 bearings that are inside the AR-500 weapon can deal with that lateral force, and to some extent the one in the pulley will deal with it too, but nylon is way switchier than steel, so not as much. I believe I need a 1.7 or 0.5? 1.5, yeah. Always really important to Loctite the screws that hold motors into a gearbox, because they'll absolutely walk out on you and your gearbox will fail in the middle of the fight, even if you're not getting hit if the vibrations from your own weapon are too great, which seems to happen very frequently with, like, the vector kits. I also have a second 3D printer I made a whole video about modifying. That was just a shitty TiVo Tarantula Pro that I got the frame of for free because somebody wasn't using it and wanted to get rid of it because they couldn't be bothered to fix it at my local makerspace. So I ended up basically throwing $100 of upgrades onto that free 3D printer and turning it also into a carbon fiber nylon capable machine, but it has a bunch of issues with the extruder, so I don't really use it much, so I still have it. So I have a flathead, which has to fit underneath the gear. There's one flathead M2, so socket heads. So flat has this 1.3 millimeter drive, whereas the socket flat. I think this is the one that's soldered in. Yeah, this is the one where it moves. So, yeah. Fortunately, this is the easier to fix drive side, so I don't have to run the receiver cable underneath the side. Ah, crap. This was done. Blackbird. Yeah, this is why I like using connectors and everything. It makes it really easy to swap out things. You can see how the repair's going. Just kind of getting started here. Nothing crazy so far. So I have here another gearbox that's fully assembled, ready to accept a motor. I think I have one that's missing. Maybe that I swapped that one in last event. So, this is what the gear set looks like, by the way. That's inside the gearbox. This is 2 separate sets, like all the parts needed for that. How's it going, Simon? So yeah, I've got one assembled gearbox put in there. I think I might actually have all the gears though. I'm curious if I broke any gear teeth. This definitely is covered in crud, but... Are you gonna focus for me? Come on. There you go. That one and this one were both in the robot when that gearbox got hit. They look perfectly fine to me, honestly. I'm surprised. So that saves me the expense of having to pay, I think it's what, 12 British pounds plus whatever the shipping is to the US to get a gear set. I should use that one later. Yeah, the casing seems like it's really the only thing that took damage. And you can see it kind of just split where there's too thin of a wall on the edges, so I might just make it a little bit bigger in all dimensions and make that wall thicker on the side for another version at some point, but I'm still not 100% sure if I even want to stay with this, or if I might even try and copy Shuffle Mind's drivetrain onto Division at some point in the future, though I would have to like redo the whole chassis if I wanted to try and fit it that way. What configuration do I run against undercutters? I obviously use the wedge against undercutters. Can I do a vid about how to make your first Battlebot? I kind of did a bunch of videos about how to make a Battlebot. You should watch the video series I have for Mulcher, my 1 pound US weight robot. So I've got a whole bunch of videos kind of from start to finish on that. But I'm also doing a video series right now of start to finish of building Shrapnel Mine. There's no way I can make it one video. It's just too much for like a single video though. The only time I've had an XT60 come apart during a fight, it was when I was fighting at the Franklin Institute, and my robot ran into another robot backwards, so the weapon hit straight down. My robot launched itself 7 feet in the air, and at the time it had acrylic top armor, so as soon as it hit the ground, the top armor exploded, shattered, and the battery flew out and unplugged itself. But otherwise, the only other time one came unplugged was against, just at this last event, against Sepio 1, where, actually no, it wasn't the XT30, it was an XT30, that didn't even unplug, it was the bullet connectors plugging into the motor that unplugged, and it was still fine afterwards. On the other drive side here, these wires stayed intact and the motor just hanging out. You guys want to see what the inside of the gearbox looks like when it's not in shambles? Oh, I did that completely wrong. Yep, oops. This is what the gearbox is supposed to look like when it's actually assembled and not exploded. I'm gonna have to grab some Loctite. These are 100% custom designed. You can find the design for free on my web store, which you can find a link to in the description. Grab my Loctite because I forgot that. I also realized I did in fact have another pre-assembled pre-wired motor. So yeah, I just didn't have it already assembled to a gearbox as well. But I think this one, oh yeah, this one I'm not going to use. This was an experiment where I tried using green Loctite to get the pinion to stay on, and I could easily turn it without the shaft turning. So that's, seems like that's not gonna work at all. Other people from Bloodsport have competed at Norwalk Havoc in the past, but Justin Marple, the captain, is the only other person who's like in the area, and he and Nick, who is from Michigan but currently is now attending WPI, WPI for grad school. Both went to Norwalk in March with two 30-pound versions of Bloodsport to test out. My front wedge is both the front wedge and the fork configuration have 3D printed parts. This is what's under the wedge right now is TPU. That's a lot thicker. This is TPU as well, but the forks themselves are AR500 here, and the front plates on the horizontal are titanium. I don't actually have another set of these right now, so I was just gonna probably swap the. I might just swap those to the horizontal config. They don't, which is why I am now fixing it. It's mainly the ones on the sides that failed, because these were held on with like two small screws, and they just sheared. I'm probably not going to worry about division too much for the July event, since shrapnel line I feel like it's useful for that. Plan for keeping the forks on the ground is to not allow them to do this. That's really the only issue I had. Gravity, they are getting stuck. Usually allow them to just stay on the ground. Alright, let's see what to do here. Oh wait, I have to do the flat end first. That's the one I have to drive around for. That's only what we've got time. So that one I don't want to use. This one was the one that was already in there. This one I do want to use. Which way do the wires need to come out in the sky? I have them both. The wires towards the front of the bot. I have both Division and Craft Mine entered, registered right now, but it's gonna depend on how much time I have, because this was kind of a disaster with Division because I spent so much time on just Shrapnel Mine and no time getting Division ready, and I tried to make all these changes with the fork config that just didn't work out. And also the wheels, the hubs themselves being printed in TPU, it turned out they just don't want to stay on the shafts. They're way more slippery than the nylon ones I had been using before. And I just didn't have time to find that out before they flew off in every fight. If I get Shrapnel Mine working in a relatively expedient manner, and also Battlebots isn't starting to film in really early August, and also I can actually spend actual time getting Division to work properly, then I will probably enter them both. Yeah, Norwalk is a great competition, if you don't mind losing. It's really tough, but it is a lot of fun, and the stream setup is just bonkers. It's so good. A little worried I might over-tight screws and have them digging too far into the body of the motor, so I think I'm going to give it a quick system check here. This is channel 2. Grab a transmit. Look, something else that I receiver doesn't look like it's getting power. Doesn't make sense though. Anything else? Maybe this is just the wrong. Pretty sure this is the first one. The other one says to go on the receiver. Okay. There we go. Okay. The receiver cable unplugged for the other side's drive motor, so that's why that one wasn't turning. Okay. Before I squeeze this back in, hey, Yes Chef was made out of cutting boards and it did really well, so you never know. Okay. Let's need to get this gearbox back together. Oh right, I forgot. This entire front piece is still on gear. Looks like those screws shook loose a little bit. Yeah, you can make a robot work out of some cheap stuff. Division is just not that robot. Division is much more of an engineering challenge than it is a competitive design, really. You knew that from the moment that I started designing it, that it wasn't going to be like Silent Spring or anything. I definitely agree that proper design techniques can get you very far, even without access to fancy tools and materials. First version of Division is also complete garbage from a design perspective, which is why I basically restarted from scratch when I went to version 2.0. Yeah, it's been around for like 2 years now, but yeah, Silent Spring's been over for like 15 years. Yeah, that's not 15, but like more than 5 times as the first Division has been around. So yeah, this is the other half of the gearbox that split in half. Don't need that anymore. That is making pieces I don't like. What is teeth are rubbing on something. Oh, good. There's a crack through, like, this entire housing. I don't know if it's going to show up on camera at all. Right there. You see that? So, I'll switch to the other good front. Shrapnel Mine is definitely also an engineering challenge, but like kind of trying to get it to defeat the meta style of robot. So I think it'll be competitive against the right kind of opponent, which is to say the type of opponent Division is weakest against. It's like small diameter beater bars and drums. You'll have to check the Norwalk Havoc wiki because they have changed the rules regarding Brett on sticks a number of times, but I believe right now they're going with single on stick per fight per robot. Bound up a little bit. I think this one needs to be greased too. Let me be right back and grease. A ton of greases that are necessarily safe to use on plastics, but this is one of them. feels pretty decent. The gearboxes need to run in a little bit because the alignment from plastic housing with just some pins pressed into it on the gears exactly engineering grade right out of the box, but it definitely works just fine once it's running a little bit, as long as the gears aren't like crushed by the housing being over tightened with the screws or whatever. Right now I'm doing a pretty loose fit up, and then I'm probably going to switch the robot on again, try and run this a little bit as I play around with the tightness of these 4 screws to make sure that it's able to turn smoothly before I bolt everything back together. Almost at 2. So about halfway over with what I have planned, though I might go over time if I'm still working after 3 o'clock rolls around. So I can turn the motor pretty freely, and the shaft turns 15 times slower. It's kind of hard to see probably, but if I turn the shaft, you'll see it. Being able to turn the shaft is usually possible by hand when it's actually running a little bit though, so let's bits. This is like the worst part of servicing the spot. This freaking receiver connection to the left right. Because it's sticking up literally like half an inch out of the base plate right now. I would actually get it. I think like 5 times. It's not even upside down. What the? Alright. I should see both joint sides turning now. Oh, did the camera cut out? Ah, it did. I don't think the battery died. I think it's just the USB connection. One moment. Come on, camera. Alright, if I touch the USB cable, it like tries to switch it from just charging while plugged in to like displaying footage on my laptop or whatever, so it's kind of dumb. Oh crap, battery is exhausted. It wasn't charging the whole time. Alright, well, RIP. 1 sec. I thought it was plugged in, but maybe the cable came loose. That's why I compared. Well, that battery was hot. Yeah, just imagine if I was streaming in 4K instead of in 1080p though. Dead in like 20 minutes. Stupid tripod mount. USB power is just causing me to freak out. There we go. Now we have one more battery to run through. Oh yeah, sorry about that. That was because the USB connection was being super flaky. Alright, so we're batteries in, and I'm now recording again. So we have probably another hour before that happens. Okay. Back to this. On this thing. It's going at like on 4F and it's 2300 TV, so 17 times 2300 RPM. Do that. In the other direction now. That's much better. Oh, there's something. Let's try. Or oh, sorry. Okay. Shit. This is one of the titanium side panels. So basically just kind of slap that on. It's hot, but not worried. Screws. That's actually really hot. We're running at full speed for that long fight. Changing directions also helps. I think I did have a chance to answer these. Okay. Do I anticipate major upcoming challenges? Yes. It is. Into it because I'm gonna have to make it bigger than that little test bed that I showed in my last video to do that, obviously. So trying to figure out the best way to do that is tried both a long drive base and a wide drive base, which I didn't put on video because I didn't realize I could put it inside the test box and forgot where it was. But I found it since then. I'll show that in a sec. I basically tried putting the drive pods on either side of the weapon for this one, as opposed to having them behind the weapon. And this way, the saw can cut all the wires, so I'm probably going to have to move it back even further, or at least wider too. But I don't think it'll have to be this wide. But I do need to move these apart back somewhat to get the electronics to actually maneuver room. With this setup, there still wasn't room, but it drove like complete crap because the center of gravity was so close to where the wheels are that it would just wheelie every time it went forward. Noise reduction's making my voice hard to hear. I can switch that off, but then you're possibly going to hear a lot of background noise. Is that any better? Let me know. I just switched off the noise reduction. I'm wearing noise cancelling headphones on my own, so it's hard for me to tell how loud anything outside of my head is. I'll just turn up the gain on the microphone too. Maybe that helps a little bit, to some extent anyway. It still feels like it's getting caught. I'm like boiling right now because I already switched off the AC, because even with the noise reduction it was like, sounded really stupid when I was listening to recordings of myself. That's what the music's for. I don't know why, there's like a certain point like in the rotation where it's like catching, but then everywhere else it's like pretty much fine. Now it seems to still have plenty of torque to actually spin itself, so I guess I don't really have to be that concerned. It's already 206. No, the axle's not bent. I'm pretty sure it would probably shear. This isn't the original axle, this is the original one. It's pretty much fine. I think the hub itself is the only part that took a direct shot, so it's kind of squished out of the way, I guess, for the most part. Oh, I totally forgot I didn't even turn on my light on my camera when I had to replace the battery. Is that better? That is the question you should ask Nick, because he's doing the blade designs, but we do have plans. Oh well. Oh yeah, I forgot, it's like daylight out. Do this. That's how I save the light battery. Some sunlight. Yeah, that doesn't do a whole lot. Okay. Gotta get this guy back together. It's not really a secret, but Nick's the guy doing the design work, so I'll let him be the one to talk about it when he feels like it. Oh yeah, and you put the other plastic piece in there that's not split in half. These guys. Yep, that's the plan, is to have them not suck this time. So to be fair, it's not like they broke because they were designed badly. It was mainly just like the other robots are kind of insane. Gruff is like one of, if not the worst matchups for us, just because they're just a brick. The reason I talked about this in the comments from something else recently, but like, the reason we used S7 is because in theory, it will fail at a higher load than AR500 for the same design. But the problem is the way it fails is that it becomes snapped in half and useless, whereas with AR500, if it just warps a little bit, it'll at least stay together and balanced enough to get you through the rest of that fight, if not other fights. Though once you have if you have a thick enough piece of AR, once it's bent, like, you're basically not going to unbend it without like oppress the size of an entire building. But you'll at least be able to keep using it. So that's one reason that we made the disc out of the AR, was that we knew that even if it got slightly bent from like getting hit directly by another robot's weapon on top, where it's like potentially weaker than it might have been otherwise, it would not just like shatter. Let's see. 22, that's not bad. That's about how many I had, I think, for most of the last stream. Where was I? What design flaws does it have? Well, for one thing, it has 2 wheels instead of 4. And also the weapon is about twice as big as it should be to actually be competitive. But that's what makes it fun. And there's obviously like a ton of, oh my god, what happened to that capacitor? Holy shit. That still works? This could explain some things. Oh boy. That got crushed at some point. I don't think this capacitor actually needs to be there. I just was worried to run without it, so I kept it on, but that might have... It should be like basically making the whole system at least a little more stable. But there's a chance it's not really doing that. Well, it still spins up the motor just fine, so I'll leave it for now, but that's definitely not great. It doesn't really damage itself when division hits the ground at all. It was only because the way that this current armor configuration configuration was set up so badly that it was really doing anything to itself. Like, it bounces around the box just fine with the horizontal config, and it has for months. Like, hitting the soft wooden floor is never going to do as much to it as hitting an enemy robot's weapon. There's just no way. It'll chew straight through the floor and absorb a good amount of the energy from the weapon that way, instead of it just being, like, completely obliterated. This new, like, weapon motor setup is still giving me a few issues, though. Just the speed controller seems like it wants to reset sometimes when it should still function. I'm not really sure why, because it's not blowing up or anything. It still works afterwards, but it'll shut off for, like, long enough that I'll tap out, like it did against Eruption. Alright, so I need some different screws for this, which I ordered already. I also have to pull out the screw that's on this side, which I can't easily get to. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm just going to leave these on because I can get this broken screws out and put in the larger screws. But I'm definitely not going to keep it this way for the next competition, because the TPU just doesn't hold these threads well enough. Okay. Let me run and grab those screws. This is what I should have been using. I don't know if you'll be able to tell really on camera that those are any different. Oh wow, this actually doesn't look different at all. It's supposed to be a larger diameter screw. This does seem pretty much the same. These are number 6 and not number 4 though, so that's weird. I'm not sure why they don't look obviously beefier. Yeah, I'm probably going to swap the AR500 forks through the, or I'm going to swap the AR500 forks that were on the sides, these ones that bent. Probably going to swap these to like a TPU or some other flexible plastic that won't just like get permanently bent like this. Does my weapon bolt bearing help? Help with what? And yeah, this bolt can be removed. It's just on there right now because I left it there. It has to be able to be removed for me to swap the blades. What do I use them to keep from rubbing? I don't. I just added a 3D printed spacer. This little nylon spacer here. That makes it so that instead of any of the screw heads rubbing, just this slippery nylon piece rubs on that side, and then this is the nylon pulley, so that also rubs. Nylon is pretty low friction and it works just fine for the fact there's almost no axial load on this anyway. Like I said earlier, the plan is to just redesign these parts, so I won't be using these in the future. I'll be using ones where this won't get stuck upwards. I just need to like carve away more material on the back, like right here underneath where this is, I think. The problem is like I want to be able to limit the angle, so I might have to laser cut new forks that have something that sticks out further on the back than these do, so that it just can't really carve in here. But That's not a hard problem to solve, just some geometry changes to the fork, the TPU, or both. It's like, these are really surprisingly durable. Like, it really won't just rip out no matter what you do to it. So, I'm happy with this level of unfuckability on these forks. The ones on the sides, obviously, not so much. Oh, what the hell? These use like a tiny Torx bit for their size. Where the hell is the hole for this? Oh, there we go. It just shifted forwards. This is what I've been using as a hub before. This is what I tried at the event without testing it enough, and there's basically two problems with these, it turns out. Number one is that these little fins that stick out made it so that these forks at the front weren't doing enough to actually keep the tire from sliding off. And number two is that the TPU itself slips off of the shaft much more easily, even though it was like hot glued on. Apparently hot glue doesn't bond to this stuff nearly as well, so I'm just going to put on a nylon one for now. These kind of have a narrower bore too, so they more or less press on. Let's start with. I put those two screws in still. I think the bigger risk is around whatever the hell Battlebots timeline is, because we still haven't really heard about lockdown dates. So there's a chance it could be filmed really close to the July Norwalk, and then no one would be able to come, basically. But yeah, my plan is definitely to focus more time and attention on Shrapnel Mine leading up to July. And if I have to not enter Division because I think it'll be too much to repair both of them at the same time, then I'm definitely going to default to Shrapnel Mine. I won't be retiring Division entirely or anything, but fielding both at the same competition, when it's a competition with as fast turnaround as Norwalk, is getting increasingly more and more difficult because the turnaround time between fights can very often be the minimum 20 minutes if you go past the first few rounds. That's really just what I'm going. There we go. Okay. This is the mostly intact piece. Oh hey, it's that guy. Oh, the psycho guy. Yeah, I've heard of him. How you doing, Mike? Oh yeah, I forgot. I ordered more of those number 8 size screws too, because I was having a really hard time finding them. Oh damn. Just completely missed the standoff. There it is. Alright. I'm not going to fully close that up before I give it another go. Make sure everything's working there. Now you can see what I'm actually commanding on those sticks. Seems like it's working fine now. There used to be way more on the West Coast than there was on the East Coast. It's just because Norwalk is like freaking huge now. That seems like there's a ton more on the East Coast, and it's really just Norwalk, to be honest. With COVID, like everything on the West Coast got shut down. But there was Robo Games, which was like the biggest combat robotics competition, period, in the US. And that, for some reason, stopped happening in around 2018. So unfortunately, it's not really a thing anymore. But I appreciate that I've inspired you. That is kind words. Yeah, I'm aware, Brownie. Thank you. I'll turn this off first. I have 2 entire videos totaling almost 50 minutes long that explain everything that goes into spinner design that you should look up if you're interested in how I designed this. I covered not how I designed this one, but a different asymmetrical spinner in that series. But basically it's a matter of building up some geometry and then tweaking it until the center of mass is close to the axle. Was that on this side? Oh, it was on this side. Oh crap. Okay. It was the one in this front corner. Okay. much spare of everything do I take? That is a good question. It varies. Right now I have 1.5 spare weapon motors because they were expensive. I originally bought 3 so that I'd have one ready to go assembled robot and then a third spare. The problem when you have 2 completely built robots is that if like one thing breaks, you need to have a third of it to actually swap it on to get 2 working robots again. It kind of defeats the purpose of having a second robot ready to go after your second fight otherwise. But I generally try and make sure I have enough parts for like 3 full bots if I know it's something that's likely to break at a minimum. Like something like armor panels, I had exactly 6 front wedges that are like 3 left and 3 right side. Oh, this is like impossible to run. The motor in the way. The side panels, for some reason, I have, I think 8 instead of just 6, but those are also interchangeable, so I don't have to have a left side and right side. They're actually identical because they're not bent. And then for motors, I just have enough that I can swap stuff in when I need it. I think I have 7 of the drive motors, and that's totally unnecessary, but I use the same ones on... I thought I was going to use the same like drive system on a different robot before realizing that it's not quite as reliable as I was hoping it would be. Well, I'm glad that you are actually going to have a functional Beetle Wave, Mr. Psycho, in any case. Even if it's not going to be able to fight a Norwalk. Or I guess it would be able to, but you don't want to assume that it will explode or something. There we go. Oh, I thought you were going to have something besides just the saw blade wheels. Then yeah, that would qualify. My camera's at 50% battery, and it is 2:30, so I think I was about right. Oh, just kidding, it now says it's at 25% battery. I need to take another battery pit stop. I had 2 options for how to do this. I could either try charging it live over USB, which is what I was trying to do and it didn't work, or I could buy a dummy battery that is basically a battery with a cable sticking out of it that you plug into the wall. But A, that seemed hella sketchy to me. I bought one anyway to try it out, but then B, it turned out because the cable sticks out where the battery compartment is, the battery compartment can't be closed, which means you can't put a tripod mount on the camera without buying an expensive frame to build around it. So instead I'm just going to swap the batteries every 45 minutes, which normally I wouldn't be filming anywhere close to this long continuously, so the battery life hasn't really been a problem for me before now. Okay. Oh, I just realized this was still intact. I don't even know why I brought out a new piece for that. This one's like mostly fine though. Yeah, I don't think this camera would allow me to do that, but even so, the tripod plate itself, not quite actually, the tripod plate I have on it now is actually not going to block the battery door, because I bought a separate set of quick change adapters that are smaller than the one that's on the tripod I'm using itself, which would have been too big. Now, the tripod quick change plate is the screw for the tripod mounting. It literally runs like through the battery door, so you cannot open it at all if you have that screw mount being used. That's why you need to put a frame on it that has a separate screw mount and has an opening for the battery door to be open. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty much together now. Everything still works. It's a 3/8 inch shoulder bolt. Metric standards, so I might switch at some point, but I've already built up a lot of the metric hardware, so. There's my little key. I'm tempted to get a key for this. I definitely brought it with me. Where did it go? What the heck? Oh, no, that's not it. Just the same exact color as the bottom down here. Oh, they're snowing me. Alright, I'll just use the crappy one. Crappy one I've used before that's floppier and harder to use. Ah, shit, the battery died again. Oh, come on. I actually have 5 batteries, but... Okay. Yeah, I don't know. This is one of the things that I was concerned about when doing this for the first time, was just that trying to get this camera to last long enough wouldn't happen. The real problem is just that it's not charging over USB the whole time, because if it was doing that, it should be able to do easily 3.5 hours or more. But because it uses a micro USB connection for charging and data, which is just the absolute worst, it was like, if I even tapped the camera, it would like disconnect and reconnect. And then whenever it reconnects, it switches to USB uploading pictures to my computer rather than USB charging it. So it would switch the overlay over to that screen instead of actually showing what's in front of it. Actually, I have 4 batteries, not 5, but whatever. That would be difficult because there's nothing to seat against on the camera. This is what I was talking about with the battery door. See, it literally hinges through where the screw mounts. So there's no way you can put something that's screwed on here without it preventing you from opening the door. I think if I was using the Sony original cable, which is a bit short, I might just swap to that. I think I might be using a crappier micro USB that just isn't holding on as well. So if I switch over to the original one that came with the camera, it might grip a bit better. But if this camera was USB-C, I would be so much happier. But everything else about this camera, honestly, is like pretty fantastic for how much it costs and everything. If it was actually charging, I think it would almost, but not quite match the drain. When the camera was brand new, apparently when they first came out, they actually couldn't charge fast enough to keep up with the drain, but they released a firmware update to it that allows it to take more current over USB, so it's kind of able to keep up now. There we go. You guys seeing anything yet? Come on. Huh, why isn't it coming up? Camera's on, it's recording and everything. Technical difficulties. I have it plugged into an externally powered USB hub, specifically to avoid that being the problem. And this hub should be able to take like 3 or 4 amps of 5-volt power, no problem. Alright, so now the camera shows that it actually is plugged in. And it shows that it's recording. And yet, it's not showing up via the micro HDMI output for some reason. What is going on? Huh, I don't really know why I don't have a video feed now from my capture card. Still nothing. There we go. I just had to deactivate and reactivate the capture card apparently. That was weird. I just had to click deactivate and activate again in OBS. Even though it's the same exact source as before. Am I recording? Yeah, I'm recording. Okay, cool. Well, that's over with. Sorry, the stream's not going as smooth as... Alright. One more wheel, and then we're almost done, and I just have to put the weapon on, but I won't spin it up with the belt on stream, because that would be horrendously dangerous. Actually, maybe I should swap this hub out for one of the ones that doesn't suck. You only noticed that now. It's been like that since the first version of the bot. I actually, in the first version, that was acrylic. I had it frickin' laser etched onto the top. Because I laser cut the acrylic parts, but you can't do that for polycarb. So I was like, nah, screw it, I'm shooting 3D print nylon. That's way easier than trying to CNC out or laser cut polycarbonate or something. And that's been fine. Do I have another tire? I think they're in the box that I packed it up in. Oh no, right. I lost 2 entire tires, didn't I? I don't think I have another one that is already coated with latex. I've got tons more of the regular foam is though. Actually, wait, no. There are 2 that are still coated, but they're kind of rough. Yeah, this sucks, but it has to be done. Damn. There we go. I just reprinted a whole bunch of these washers to make them slightly easier to put on. Because at the February event, I was having so many problems because they were like way too tight on the hubs. Actually, this isn't as bad as I remember it being. Still not good though. No, sort of. I have a set of molded wheels that I think I have enough spare weight to still run on it in the horizontal config. I just never had a reason to. Actually, 2 sets. But I like, these are so much heavier than the foam wheels because there's so much rubber. So I just haven't really had a good use for them. I would definitely not use them against another spinner bot. Alright, there's like a specific little tool that I had for this purpose that I'm going to not use right now because I'm too lazy to grab it. RIP headphone users, I guess. So yeah, bearings. They're good. Use bearings. Hey, Grenades. Okay, so yeah. Speaking of games, it turns out that when you want to have good search engine optimization online, you shouldn't name your robot after a Tom Clancy video game and your YouTube channel off of a other famous video game franchise. But, you know, that's an issue for another day. Alright, it looks like the camera's saying it's not plugged in over USB, and my hub is also saying that the cable that I have the camera plugged into isn't connected to anything for some reason. Let me try a different port. Might get Windows connection noises again. No? It just does not want to work. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. I have like no space here right now. Guys with flip up arms are good. Oops, that shit the microphone, I'm so sorry. Okay. Oh yeah, the CPU is super translucent. It doesn't really show up on camera, but the light on that speed controller on the left side shines straight through it. And actually, you can't see it now. It's dark enough in here. Whoops. Oh, that wheel came right off. This washer didn't seat properly for some reason, sticking out way too far. But whatever. Fucking floor, man. This is exactly what was happening at Norwalk Arena, and this is a fake wood floor. It's freaking vinyl. Ridiculous. Alright. Weapon motors, not spinning weapon, but still works fine. Failsafe still work. Alright, I believe I made perfect timing because it is 2:54 p.m. Oh, I actually moved out of an apartment like a couple months ago that was owned by the same management company, had the same exact floor. I melted ruts into it with Draconid's drive system. I was testing it with the frickin' O-rings. They're so slippery that just the rubber on vinyl friction was enough that it just started to actually burn through it. They only charged me $30 to replace parts of the floor though. Alright, if you guys don't have any more questions, I'll just turn this over to a nice little advertisement. Why not? If you are interested in building your own division, you can basically do that. You get all of the original design files that I used to build this for 25 bucks. And I still have these PD boards for sale as well. Also, this guy, so I have 22 of these, the version 1 boards, and if I sell $200 worth of these guys, which I think is 13 of them, then I'll probably put in an order for at least 120 more, because that'll cover a good portion of the cost of doing that. What 3D printer do I use? I use the Prusa Mark III's, and I would definitely recommend the Prusa Mini. It will suck with TPU, and carbon fiber you need to upgrade to a hardened steel nozzle, but otherwise it'll work stock for regular nylon just fine. And it's not hard to upgrade it because you can get the same E3D hot end parts as a lot of other printers use that's pretty readily available. What will cover a portion of the cost? Oh yeah. Let me turn the microphone gain down because I can actually talk into the microphone now. Hello. You guys can still hear me clearly? Yeah, my tripod leg's like super narrow so it can fit back here. It's usually a lot more stable. Yeah, the Prusa Mini definitely seems like a capable printer. Robert Cowan has a pretty good video where he talks all about his experience with, I think, both the full-size Prusa Mark III's and the Prusa Mini, and he really likes the Mini as well. I haven't personally used the Mini, but having seen other reviews of it and his and whatnot, it seems like it's a really solid printer. So I would recommend it with the caveat of having not personally used it. Yeah, any other questions for you? How is Division doing now? You just saw it. It works fine now. I just fixed it. Roll back the stream like literally 5 minutes and I have it driving around. But yeah, the PD boards, if you're interested, basically, I want to make a version 1.2. This is the version 1.0 of the what I'm calling the all-in-one or the Pro board. I'm not sure on the naming yet. So this guy, this huge regulator here, that's going to be replaced with a much smaller one that weighs almost as little as half as much as this does. But this regulator is like 2 grams almost, and I'll be replacing it with one that weighs only 1.2 grams. So, but those regulators cost literally like 8 times as much as these ones do, which is why it's going to cost like hundreds of dollars for me to order a lot of them. So that's why if I get some sales, then I can actually afford to do that. Like I probably just about afford it otherwise, but it would help to offset the risk of spending hundreds of dollars on something that I might sell 0 of. And yeah, I do have some nice guitars, I guess. They're not that expensive, but they work. If you're gonna build a ferry, probably not. Honestly, they seem pretty boring compared to the larger bots. Like the 3 pound is like very exciting and very competitive. 1 pound is like reasonably competitive within the US, but 150 gram, there's like one competition, Motorama, that I go to that even fights those, and they're on Friday. I've been to Motorama like 4 times now, and I've fought with a 3-pound and 30 sportsmen there, and 12 hobby weight with Draconid, 30 sportsmen with Karma and Conduit, and 3-pound with Division, and also another bot that I worked on, which was Top Kill. But I haven't actually thought about doing anything with 1-pound at Moto, because they do the 1-pound bots on a Friday, and then they do everything heavier on Saturday and Sunday. How expensive is it building and maintaining a powerful spinner like Division? I mean, Division is very atypical even among powerful spinner bots. But like building it was expensive because the way it's designed is to use a bunch of laser cut parts with 3D printed parts to join them together, and I have to do some actual CNC machining on the uprights. So like these like black upright parts are designed in Fusion as a topology optimized laser cuttable blank that I then CNC'd I just used the CNC basically to do what you could do on a manual mill easily, which is to drill 5 evenly spaced holes on the bottom for these screws, and then also one on the back for this screw. So like doing this all on CNC, which I did on previous versions, was just like a lot of work because it's like 5 faces of machining, but with laser cut blank and just having to drill and tap 2 sides, it's not nearly as bad. But doing that if you don't have access to a CNC machine would be like horrendously expensive and impractical. So it's hard to say how much it would cost for like you to build it if you don't have access to a Tormach like I do and know how to use one. I don't think if you don't know how expensive it is, you shouldn't be building one. I think that if you don't understand how unsafe they are, you shouldn't be building one. There are no 3-pound modular kits. They're just period. There are no 3-pound modular kits. The only modular kit bot is 1-pound ant weight vector kit, or Viper kit, sorry. The other ones are not modular. So the Vector, Taserface, the Fingertech beater bar thing isn't even a kit. It's just a collection of parts you have to build your own chassis from scratch for. Those are not modular at all. You have to run them in one configuration. Have I thought about making a horizontal spinner? This is my horizontal spinner. I already did that. I have a whole series of like 9 videos on this guy. But this is a 1-pound ant weight. And this has been upgraded so it actually uses N20s for drive now, but I have nowhere to fight it right now because Norwalk doesn't run ants, and none of the other competitions that do run ants are open due to COVID at the moment, so waiting on those to come back. But yeah, this is Mini Mulcher's weapon. It is legitimately half an inch shorter than Division's, because it is like half the weight of the robot between the motor powering it and the axle and gear and the weapon itself. I have designed a ring spinner, but I haven't built it yet for a 3-pound. But I'm probably not going to do that until several iterations of Shrapnel Mine, if at all, because I think Shrapnel Mine is a much more different and interesting thing to work on as an engineering design challenge. You can actually get the weapon design for Mini Mulcher for $1, which honestly I make only 2/3 of because of PayPal fees, but I just have it here so that if people wanted to copy it, they can. What are the PWM pins for? They are for powering a receiver. So on this board, you can plug a little jumper cable like this. That's just a female-to-female servo cable in. and that way you can deliver 5 volts from the black and red wires. And the nice thing about it is that I included a 3-pin header instead of just a 2-pin, even though you need the 5 volt and the ground only. By making the 5 volt in the middle, you can actually plug this in either orientation. So if you plug it in this way, or you plug it in this way, because the signal channel is just going to a ground, it doesn't do anything. It'll still work perfectly fine. I've tested it and it works great. And yeah, it's a BEC, more or less. Mini Mulcher's CAD I'm not going to release until it's actually fought against 1 pound bots and proven not to suck. Because I feel like it was pretty unfair for me to hit it with my 3 pound bot a couple times and have it break. And with the current drive config, I had to completely redesign the chassis to make it fit, so I now don't know if something else might fail. And I would never upload a design for sale that I think would fail. Where is around here? the East Coast, Northeast area? That's kind of whereabouts I am. I mean, if you want to make a personal offer, then send me an email through the Contact Us page on my website. But I have had one other person request that before, and I worked out a deal with them, but with the understanding that it's an unfinished design. Wasn't there a site with all of the competitions? There's kind of 2. So the main one is this one. But it doesn't have like everything. And also it does everything that's not just in the United States. So you've got like Australia and the UK on here. But there is also Builders DB, which is all of the events run by Northeast Robot Combat Club, including Motorama and Franklin. Where's the events thing? There it is. Right now there's like nothing though. Like when I visited this before COVID, this page was like filled with future events. And you can see there's been 489 past events. So yeah. But yeah, Builders, well, it's not just NERC, but the ones that I've been to have from Builders DB were all either run by NERC, the Northeast Robot Combat Club, or they were SWORD, which is the Penn College of Technology's own like robotics club. I'm not gonna make a trip out to to Minnesota. I don't think that would be pretty far. I have like a day job I have to be in New Hampshire for, unfortunately. That's also right before Norwalk, so that's gonna suck. But yeah, if you're looking for events in the US, these 2 sites will generally have it, but because of COVID, there's like really not much. Other than Norwalk, obviously. Alright, how about this? I'm gonna call it quits at 3:15 p.m. So if you guys have any final questions or other things you'd like to know, let me know. Oh, I also still have 7 of these, of the original V0.2 boards. And if there's interest in these, the difference between the 2 is basically just that this guy has no active components on it. So there's no BEC, there's no switch built into the board, but you can solder one on. And there also is no LED. So it's just a bare board as I receive it, but you can solder on all the other crap. And then I have this VBAT pin here, which you could solder to a receiver if you're running on 2S, that will take up to 2S or whatever, or just plug a BEC straight into this to take your battery voltage. But that is basically the only difference, and it's smaller, so it'll fit into more robots. So I have 7 of those left, and I might do a redesign of this if people like them and want this in, like, if there are certain people besides just me who have a use for one that doesn't have the built-in switch and LED and BEC, because they're either running speed controllers that have BEC and LEDs built into them, or they just need something that's smaller, then I'll probably do another order of these, because these don't cost me nearly as much, since they don't have a regulator that costs like 3 times what the board itself does on them. Would I be able to build a version of Mini Mulcher that uses one of Division's blades? I mean, theoretically, but it would be really overweight. Because Mini Mulcher's weapon is like 7 ounces and Division's weapon is like 10 ounces. And also the rest of Mini Mulcher weighs like as little as possible already. Yeah, you're welcome for the stream. If you enjoyed it, that's great. Didn't get any super chats this time, did I? No, I did not. It doesn't look like it. That's fine. There are only like 20 people watching at once anyway. I'll try and figure out something with the camera for next time if I try and do something that's gonna be with the Sony camera the whole time. Maybe I'll end up just saying F it and getting one of the frames so that I can run a dummy battery in it, but I feel like I should be able to get USB power to work. It's just being stupid. I forgot I have my frickin' key light here that was turned off. No, Mini Ultra is definitely not going to appear at another Norwalk unless I was just fielding like 1-pounders there, which just seems like it's not going to happen. It's just it's basically just an arena hazard, which is not something that I want to have to deal with when I'm already focusing on driving Division. If I was maybe running a second bot that didn't hit in 360 degrees around it, it might be manageable, but I think it's just too hard to coordinate, like absolutely never having the bots run into each other with a weapon that goes all the way around it. Alright, if that's all the questions you guys have, I'm going to sign off. Thanks for watching. Underground competition is not legit. That's not like an actual thing. I don't have time to deal with repairing Mini Mulcher in between rounds and Division and Shrapnel Mine anyway. I will when there are any, but currently there are no events where I can run Mini Mulcher, which was the reason I haven't run it yet. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Alright. See you guys. I have no idea when the next stream will be, but maybe when I hit another subscriber milestone. Because this was around 2,700, and the last one was around 2,500, so maybe I'll do another one when I hit 3,000, or if I come up with a better idea for a stream before then. But yeah, I mean, if you guys have ideas for what you'd like to see, just let me know in the comments on this when it goes into view on demand in whatever, however long that takes. Alright, see you guys. Enjoy your weekends, or what's left of them.